welcome to another episode of Lighting Bot. Today we are doing portfolio review and critique of at least one person and probably a few pieces of the person. Um, so if we look tired, it's because we are tired. It's quite early in the morning for two of us, and it's quite late for the third person. So we might be a bit slow in the process this first time. So we'll be winging a little bit. Some of it is prepared, some of it is as we talk. We might notice more when we listen to each other's opinions, so bear with me. So the first person that we're just gonna let go first is Sorab, and I don't know if you want to share your screen or.
Yeah, I can share my screen. So hey guys, I don't know if we have anyone watching yet, but hey, if someone is, so I'm gonna go over with let me bring up. So I prepared for Stephen Umani. I'm sorry if I'm butchering your last name, and a few things from Thomas. I believe they posted, and then I'd given already feedback for some of them. Um, specifically. So let me share my screen. Share screen.
Why is my camera the biggest one? Why can't I move? Why can't I make one of you guys a big camera? There we go.
Are you seeing my screen? Oh, there you go.
Yeah,
All
it's
right.
good.
So yeah, just before like sort of like diving into the piece itself, I just wanted to go through like some of the general points, and what we're like looking at, and basically just like giving feedback on that. See, the few points are basically framing and lighting composition itself. It doesn't necessarily mean just lighting. It's basically how you're framing, how the assets are composed, how the frame, how basically the scene is set up, right? And then the next point is again like a little bit more about composition. What are your focal points? What's the subject and points of interest? What are your primary hero assets? What's your secondary assets? What's the story you're trying to tell? And also like in each piece that you've given, like what, how's the breakdown? Like have you given the process down? Are there any references, or at least talked about what you've tried to do there? uh, have you conveyed the intended feeling and what you've tried to do there? And then just like in terms of game dev, because there's a lot of nuances and in just like doing the handling the tech and understanding the fundamentals there, just like analyzing the techniques you guys have done in your pieces. So the first one I have is this Edith Finch. Let me turn off the text. There you go. So this was a Edith Finch piece by Steven that he had submitted. I think like for me initial um, the initial feeling is like this is it feels very warm and cozy. I want to get like a cup of coffee there and just sit by the fire and just like enjoy the warmth there on a really cloudy overcast day. So I think like this is like really a great piece. So I'm just gonna go over the points that are made down just to see how each of them is doing. So in terms of like framing and the composition here, the camera itself, I would assume there's something somewhere between 18 mm to 22 mm or something. There was a pretty wide angle. The angle is low, which I think works really well for this because lower framing and wider angle usually magnifies the scale of whatever you're pointing at, whatever subject you're looking at. And for Edith Finch, this living room is quite big and can capture the scale very well. And I think like for the in terms of that, it's well done pretty well. And the other composition I sort of wanted to like push forward the concept is the concept of tangent lines. So yeah, the definition is a straight line or a plane that touches a curved surface that at some point is a tangent line. You can see some of the examples here and like why the what that would be in a composition or in a frame and why that's important to avoid that. So tangent lines will create a little bit more noise in the scene and sort of like what do you say? It combines the shapes of the silhouettes, and it'll be harder to define the silhouettes of the assets once you have all of these tangent lines. For example, like the height, the hat here is sort of like combining with the line, the edge line of the roof, or even having parallel tangent lines, which basically makes the silhouettes a little bit more noisy to even understand. Similarly, so stuff like that. So if you look at the first piece in terms of that, there's quite a few of those around these edges. You can see some here, and yeah, definitely some more here. So it's very subtle, and it's obviously something that you have to look for when you're composing the scene and just like putting things together. If you were to just move the camera slightly lower or higher, or maybe move these things a little bit around just to make sure that you have better silhouettes and shaping, so you're not like you're avoiding these tangent lines as much as possible. It helps a lot, even though it's like a very small subtle change. And the next thing is basically what's your primary subject here? What's your focal point? For this, like this really quick thing that I usually do, it's called the squint test. It's basically like if you're just looking at an image and you squint and sort of blur it out intentionally, you can see which part of the image is like standing out for you. So if I just try to mimic that with the blur filter, you can see that the obvious parts that stand out is like the fireplace, the window, and like the right side of the right portion of the frame, which is probably what you intended, because the first thing the view's eye would look at is the warmth and the fire there. So that's a very good and easy way to sort of like just like see what's framing and what's like the focal point or where the viewer's eye is going initially. And then the other few more aspects of just like composition that I think like really works and what doesn't work is like, for me, the visual quality of what's inside and what's outside here is a slightly off. I feel like when I look at the quality of the trees and the cutout there, it sort of like stands out because I can see it's like it's pretty rough, and it's not up to the par. And also the fog and the scaling itself. I feel like if you had something like a frosted glass or raindrops, it could hide the intensity from outside and still have the same feeling of like overcast, foggy exterior, and the same lighting sort of coming inside. Um, so yeah, let's go back to the list. So the other thing I think a lot of portfolio pieces that I see that they miss is basically the process or the breakdown. They don't really talk a lot about like what they're exactly trying to achieve, what might be their references, or what's the mode they're trying to evoke. This could be just in terms of screenshots or GIFs, or even just like description given in your piece. And I think that helps a lot because you want to see the process and just the breakdown of like what you're trying to achieve. The more information you give about your thought process, the better for the recruiter. And then finally, obviously, this is more like a game dev stuff. Like for example, I observed the mirror reflection here, and obviously, I know that someone intentionally put a reflection capture right next to it to get an accurate reflection of the scene, which for me is a clear indication that whoever is trying to light this has a good understanding of like reflection cubes, and they intentionally trying to mimic the reflections on the mirror, and using the fundamental knowledge they have there with it, like basically achieve that. So some of the ways I think you can make this even more better in terms of composition and lighting is, again, try to have a frosted glass. You can excuse me, can sort of like hide the blemish and the harsh fog from outside. And if you didn't have the quality outside, then you can also have raindrops sort of like used as a motivation for light cookies. So if you wanted to create a more interesting texture from light coming from outside, then I'm guessing you going for overcast lighting here, so you can have some raindrops projecting light texture towards the interior creates a very good interesting texture here. The other thing is like, again, for me, When I looked at this picture, I'm like, this is the feeling of warmth on a cold day where I just want to sit and have some coffee, and adding subtle details in the scene, like just a warm blanket there, can elevate so much of like what you're trying to convey. And I do think there's a lot of negative space here that you could play with and probably have something in the foreground that has a dark silhouette to frame the eyes a little bit better towards the center of the primary focus here. So I think that's some of the things that you could do to elevate this, but I already think it's a great piece. I like the in soft indirect shadows coming from like the exterior lighting, the subtlety of like cool and warm lighting here, and I think it's pretty good to begin with. Um, this is also from the same person, and this is the second shot they have there. Again, same suggestions. A couple of tangent lines here. It would work if you just move the camera slightly low. A little bit of the symmetry I'm having issue with. Like you can see that the curtain is slightly off, excuse me. So stuff like that, which I like, I sort of like, it pops my eyes when I'm looking at it. I do think like experimenting with like some candle lighting or something to contrast the cool lighting and also the silhouette would be nice. I like what you got going on here too, like backlighting and just like the silhouette, basically mimicking a kitchen that's not really being used, and just like lit by an again overcast lighting coming from the uh, sky outside. But it would be nice experiment and just to like focus the focal point again a little bit more towards the center here with some candle lighting and just create some more warmth. Just again, if I were to nitpick, I think this one's like a slightly too glaring for me. You could probably turn down the specularity just a little bit. And the same thing with like here. I don't really know where this specular hit is coming from. I'm assuming it's actually a floating light that you've placed here somewhere. So yeah, like I can't connect with this and this. The other thing is like you could definitely play with a motivated light that's outside the frame. So if you wanted to have like really subtle hits, or like lighting up the frame, some portion of the kitchen from outside the frame, like coming from the next doorway or the hall, I think that's also something you could experiment with. Yeah, this is some of the points I had for Steven. I could give myself a break and have Amit, Maria talk about something else.
Yeah, sure. So, should I share my screen too?
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
Yeah, that would be useful if you want to.
Um, yeah, so just talking a bit so I totally agree with all the things that you said. And just I noticed something with this artist. So he knows exactly how to play with the contrast and how to play with the lights, like focus. I mean, try to focus the main um, objective. Like to play the focus with the lights. So I noticed like he is doing some. Oh, sorry. So he is doing. Not just only the composition of the camera, who is trying to do something like that, and now we are focusing this in this wall. It's just he's playing a lot with the lights. I'm gonna do this. He's playing a lot with the lights, so this part is more contrast, is more in the dark, and this part is in the bright part, and he focus with that technique. He's trying to focus the or view, or eyes in that wall, and I really like that what he did in this. It's not just, I mean, for me, composition with the camera is super important too, but I feel that he knows about the light, and he knows how the lights can, like share, and how to create a good environment to focus on the wall. And I really like that. I really like how he create the rim lights, and in all the objects. I really like how he play with this with the shadows, like they are not very soft, but they are not very hard, and I really like that. And even you can watch the same in this one. So he's trying to focus your view, I mean your eyes here, and that's how he play with everything here black, and here some lighting, and it's exactly the same composition of the camera. So he has his own style, and I really like that. Like he tried to keep his style in all his image, and I really really like that. Maybe in this one I will try to add a bit more blur, like the focus a bit, just in this part maybe. But yeah, I really like even the mirror here. It's getting you another perspective. So for me, even this image is not only like calm and a sad day. For me, it's even a bit scary. So I will see me there thinking in The Shining or something like that too. And this is great. I mean, he's an artist who can create different emotions to different people, and this is so cool. I really, really like it. How he played with all the lights and how he played with your feelings too. And I think this is really, really important. And as a technique, I feel that the optimization, it doesn't have a lot of noise, and I really like the little sparkles around the fireplace. Um, yeah, I really like this image. I really really like it. Um, this one I really like too. In this one, I don't add it any. I will not add it any defocus or blur, because I will keep everything in focus. I like it like this, and this remember me a bit to the some films. One is the others, and I really like it how he play with the even with the volume. He didn't add a lot. Maybe I will add it a bit more and try to keep more this part. Sorry. So I will try to put a bit more here, some volumes, area, yeah, like volumetric around the space around the room, just to try to even give more deep on the image, because the lens that he used is very straight. No, is near to the camera, so it seems everything is in the same layer. So if you add a bit a volume, you will get more deep uh, on the end of the room. But I really like this one too. The speculars, I like the specular. Maybe this one is too much for me, but yeah, I really like the image. Yeah.
Cool. Um, so we're covering quite a bit, and I think it's important because we have a couple of people watching now. If someone has any questions that's particular to you, I am okay with you asking it. I might put it up on the screen if it's relevant. So if you're the one who did the lighting and you happen to be watching, you can definitely leave a question and an explanation if you want to. I just want to remind you that we're three different people with three different background and skill sets. You will have a varied opinion, but a lot of it will be consistent. So to keep that in mind, that's why there's three of us. So you have a tech lighting artist who's quite avid in the technical details. You have a lead lighting artist who happens to be very interested in composition and color and the artistic part. And I'm more like an average person. I will pick on whatever they're not picking on. So that's what I'm going to do now, according to me. In this case, I am also the one hosting, so you will get this weird effect where you see too much. So for me, what I look at, because I know this is a game environment, and I'm going to give you the perspective from the game environment perspective. And for me, readability is a big issue or a thing when I look at PCs. There's nothing wrong with the PC itself. I'm assuming you guys can see the screen, right?
No, I can't. I can't see if you're sharing something.
Is it? Oh wait, good. How does this work? Oh yeah, 2 seconds. There we go. Now
Now
you
okay.
see it. Cool. So yeah. So as I said, I evaluate this piece with the assumption just to cover all bases because we didn't really ask you ahead of time if this is just a piece or if it's a game environment. So I want to tackle it from the point of view of a game environment, which is readability. So one of the things with me, if we look at the overall mood, I think it's great. I think it serves the purpose. Um, Personally, this is just a personal remark because I've been trained a lot to avoid it as much as possible, which is blackness. And the reason I try and explain the level of blackness, which is you can still see the shape, which is why this is still a good piece because you can look at each object, and because these are familiar objects, I can interpret there's a chair more or less in the front here, even though it's almost disappearing on my screen, which is pretty color corrected. But when it comes to gameplay and readability, you want to keep in mind the player screen, and most of them are not calibrated. So most of them might be even more darker than you think. They might not have those setting in the game if it's released with the calibration. So one of the few things I like to just do is just look at it black and white, and then I like to just play with the levels and look at the levels. And I can see already that you are crunching the black a lot. So sometimes I would just like to play with it and say, okay, you obviously have so much black that I can't go down on the levels, but if I go a little bit, maybe a bit little up, and I can see, okay, I can see a bit more of the darkness, a bit more, and then I will turn it off and just see, okay, I can see more now of the scene than before. It has a more of a punch for me. Another thing that I would consider, and this is just artistic purpose, it depends on your mood as well. I would probably desaturate the scene slightly so it's not too much on the blue side. So there's a subtle difference because you have more of the white. We are programmed to think that the moonlight is blue, so we use it a lot, but I like to push it a little bit more to the white. um, it's the same principle here. I think this is, as most people said, this is a good piece. The biggest challenge for me when I look at pieces is uh, there are multiple places to look, and for me, the places I'm looking first is the sofa. Now, if this was a game environment or even a realistic piece, the first question I have is, um, this is the brightest spot. I would expect this to be bright here as well. Normally, when I light environment with big windows and it's nighttime, I make sure that there is a nice fade of light near the window, so I can really understand that that's the dominant area, and then I pick where I want to put the lighting. So for me, it's super bright here, and then it's for some reason super dark here. So from my point of view, compositionally wise, using lighting, I would have maybe flipped it around a bit, maybe put some candle lights near other places. But overall, it's definitely it works, of course. But it's just a different mindset and different perspective to keep in mind. Depending on your mood, in this piece, you might want to try and make it darker because you have the opposite situation here where you don't have a lot of darks. It's pretty bright because there's a lot of windows, so it makes sense. But when you have one environment and I walk around, I like to see some consistency in the contrast. So I would definitely consider thinking about your mood, and I don't know the mood. If you wanted more horror, which might be the case, you would go darker. So that's also something I think is interesting to keep in mind. And you can see again here, I think the colors work for the style and everything, but because it's not too artistic style, I personally would have again gone for a bit neutral, not too blue, cut down a little bit blue. You get the more, for me, you get the more cleaner visual style that's consistent with the material and the tonal value of the materials. A lot of painters do that. They have the different color, but the value is the same, but it looks amazing. It looks different, and that's kind of the same principle here. Is sticking to the same value of the materials and the textures, which you can see here. No, it's not super green, so that's kind of what I'm trying to focus on. I'm looking at the materials and the color of the object, and I'm making sure the light as well is within the same tonal value language. I guess it's the same here as well. Here I kind of like that it's dark, but again, my biggest concern is the lack of overall value of fading. So if we talk about gradient language, so how far can you push it? You have it here, which is great. But I wouldn't mind like more detail here. I'm assuming that's the direction of the kitchen. I don't know. I haven't checked the environment, but I do agree with like what the other said, especially Sorab, is some outside light is interesting to kind of direct the player, because I don't know what's going on here. I don't know what's going on there. I am assuming you want me to go there. And maybe you want us to go upstairs, and it's the same principle here in terms of understanding the different level of contrast. In this case, I was playing around because this is the thing with giving feedback. We don't really know. There's a different feedback when you want realistic lighting. There's a different feedback if you want artistic and creative lighting. Now, just so you are aware of it, realistically speaking, the moonlight is not stronger than a candlelight. The candlelight is generally supposed to be a bit stronger. So in those cases, I might have pushed the candlelight a little bit, so you kind of see that that's more of a dominant light, and it kind of uses it to lead the eye a bit. But there's no wrong and right in this case. It's more or less just a thought and how I would do it. I think some warm light to kind of explain the directionality, so I know what's on the other room. So if you had lit this with warm light, I would probably have considered some warm light becoming a bit more obvious on some places. That would be cool to try. It doesn't mean it would work. It's just, did you try it? If so, that's cool to know. And it's the same principle with these rooms, basically, to use light that goes into the corner, like you've done here actually, but you would use a specific color language. This is very common in the type of games I work on, is having a distinct subtle color in certain rooms. I wouldn't use warm light in every room. I would maybe use a different color in the other rooms that's suitable and usable to kind of tell the player that you're getting closer to that room now, or you're getting closer to the living room where the warm light was. So that kind of things I think is useful for me anyway. But that's just my opinion on it, and that's how I think when I do my pieces. So that's that. Sorab.
Come back to me. Okay.
I just want to do a comment. So it's so different how we see the image, like you, both of you are more in the games and I'm more in the, in real and cinematics
Yeah.
and music. And it's so different. When you are talking, I was, oh yeah, that's true. Oh yeah, that's true. It's a very different vision, and I like it because I'm learning at the same time. So
Yeah, that's the purpose also, is to have different people, because I know Sorb is very different from me, because he is actually more realistic than me. He will pick more on because he's probably gonna pick it on the next character. If he looked at the reflection cube, he's probably gonna notice a few things. So that's where he is very good, and you're very artistic. I'm more in the mid ground. It really depends. So I'm paying attention to what you two are saying, and I'm like, okay, they didn't say this. I'm gonna try and say it and see how you two react, and because it's a learning opportunity for us three as well. It's like, how are we reacting to each other's, and then afterwards we'll be like, I don't know. So it's that's also what I want people to be comfortable, because a lot lot of people are uncomfortable because they don't understand there's no really right and wrong. It's just how do you approach a piece and what's the thought process behind it. And that's kind of what I'm trying to make more universal, that people understand that there are different ways to do this. And that's why Sorab, you can go on and tackle the next piece according to you.
All right, let me share my screen. Can you see it? There we go. So this next one is from Thomas. Think they had a couple of them, so that this was the one I sort of decided to just sort of give few pointers on. So going back to like all these guys again, like the same concept. What am I looking at? What's the first thing that pops into my head? Like, well, what's the framing? What's the scene that's going on? I'm not quite sure why they chose to go with the camera tilt here. um because I don't think, especially in this shot, there's not any animated high intensity or high action sequence going on. But like this one, I think it does make a little bit sense. But like for this, just like the tilt, I'm not personally, I'm not sure if I would go that direction. So just going back to again, like Amit uses black and white. I sort of use the blurring thing, but sort of like the similar technique there, because you're looking at values and colors and saturation to see what pops into your head. For me, the thing that pops into my head is like this one. Obviously, there's like a really glaring fluorescent yellow coming from the arcade cabinet here, which stands out. See, apart from that, I think framing itself could definitely use a little bit work. Trying to layer your scene a little bit better, like probably pushing this a little bit forward so you can use that again as a foreground layer. Probably having a midground and having like a background. So, like right now, I don't really know what to look at. It feels like a little bit of everything going around, which could be fine, but I think you can definitely at least lead the viewers' eyes a little bit better. Like Maria said with the last one, like the leading lines definitely help because they create physical leading lines from one point to another when you're looking at in a specific direction. The other obvious thing is I believe you're using static or semi-static lights, and you can see the preview word right here on the floor. This might be a small oversight, but it's important when you're submitting these pieces as final work on your portfolio that you don't push something that has the word preview on it. So like when someone looks at it, they're like, okay, they totally missed out. This was there, and that doesn't seem super professional. So just a side note on that. And again, here, when I was reading the description, I believe they said the reason they picked the color scheme was they wanted to give like, hey, two sides of a coin, basically two parties going into a fight, and that's why like opposing colors, which is cyan blue or pink, magenta, or like whatever, warm and cool, and then the neutral light coming in between, where this is the middle ground where they sort of like come to settle their differences. I think that's a really cool concept, but I feel like the execution is a little bit down here because again, I'm looking straight into this doorway right here because that's the strongest thing that's pulling my eyes apart from this. Um, I I I would say your characters are your hero assets here, and you want to basically push the viewer's eyes there first. So even though you could have all these lighting, like all the lighting in the environment, but the reflections don't seem very accurate in terms of what they're reflecting on the character itself, especially when you have so much green here and so much pink or magenta here. It doesn't feel like the character is receiving enough light. This could just be, I don't really know what the material is made of. If it's metallic, it could just be that you're missing specular hits coming from the lights around, or maybe you don't have enough cube maps around in the scene. That's one thing that really definitely stands out to me. And again, your shadows can be, it can be used to create again leading lights and also like push the viewer's attention towards a certain portion of the frame. But right now, I feel like the harsh lines are definitely a little jarring, and you could probably play with making it softer. So if you wanted to like blend from the colors a little bit better, you could definitely use softer shadows than these ones. Um, then going back to again composition, looking at your tangent lines, making sure the silhouettes are clear. Uh, this dustbin definitely looks out of place. It's in the center of the hallway in front of the stairs, and sort of just like creating that shadow in the center, sort of like taking me out of that experience right there. And again, the cabinet, I think like either it can be completely switched off, it can be removed, or you can position it better to frame the scene better. I would try experimenting and putting it in the foreground so you have a little bit of depth of field, and that's again pushing you inwards into the frame. Um, but yeah, that's basically my general feedback with this. But all the general points sort of like stays consistent when you're looking at something.
Oh, you're muted, Amit. But yeah, I suppose. Yeah.
Passing the
Yes.
baton to Maria.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
passing
I
on the
suppose.
bet to Maria.
Yeah. So I
I'm
think I
go-
have.
Sorry, go
Can
on.
yeah. Sorry. Can you watch? No.
Yeah, hold on.
Yeah. I'm sorry.
I just have to add it to the streams. If you share again.
Okay. Sorry. So I'm really like agree with this feedback. So for me, I have my tip too. Like sometimes I close my eyes, and I look to through another place, and then I come back to my image and open my eyes, and I see where my eyes going. And in this case, the thing is, I feel like my eyes going here for sure, so I feel this should be, I mean, talking in a video game now that I'm learning, I feel like in this situation with this type of camera, this should be less brighter, more dark. And if you wanna, maybe if you did this camera angle, it's because you want your character go there or something like that, I suppose, or this way, so the lights that you are working with should be more brightness there than in the other part of the image, so I will try to play with the lights that I have on the back, try to do them brightness than the others, try to work a bit more with the contrast, and try to maybe decrease a bit this one, not too much but just a bit, because as 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 we can see, no, so you don't have any focus in this image as we had before. So before, with the lights and with the camera angle, we everyone watched directly to the fireplace maybe, or to the frame that we have on the top on the wall. And here is like, well, I'm watching a machine, I'm watching so I have another wall here where I can go right or left. I have the last door, the door at the end of the composition, so for me is it we don't need to put a lot of lights to have a good lights. Maybe with less we get more, for me sometimes. I really like how he play with the reflections. I really like reflection in the image, and the colors and everything is working well for me. But yeah, I feel like just the lights, we will need to play a bit more with the lights and try to focus in some place where we wanna go, where is our main focus in this image. That's the main feedback that I can give in this one. And then I want to go to this one. So for me, this is happening the same. So we have different points lights, like bright lights, and my eye is a bit lost. Like, yeah, I know I need to watch everything in the image. I need to see what is happening in my scene, but at the same time is, I don't know what is happening. I'm not. I know they are gonna fight, but I don't see well the shapes, for example. I don't see well the shapes on them or him. We are like losing him at the end of the image. I really like the fog in this image. I really like it because it's getting what I didn't see in the other one. It's getting us some deep, so you feel like the room is big enough. But I still feeling like this is a main point that we don't care a lot. We need to focus more in the characters, And for example, this part, I like it, the lights, because even of the camera position, we are focused in that way, in that wall. So I like that ones, but maybe I will add some extra lights just to bring him a bit more. Um, as I said, I like the reflections too, and something that I find always very important is know why you are doing the shadows hard and why you are doing the shadows soft. So I suppose I don't know what time is outside, for example, of the metro of the subway, and I don't know if it's almost like 2 o'clock, but at the same time the color of the light is a bit blue. So the color at 2 o'clock, 2 o'clock in outside should be more warm, Of if it's a moonlight and it's a very hard moonlight, I will try to do it a bit more bluish, maybe. I don't know, but we need to play with all the colors that we have here. So I understand this neutral color, and I like it, but I will try to, okay, if it's going to be like more white light, I'm going to think about how I want to see the shadows. Maybe these shadows is too much, it's very hard, and I will do it a bit soft, just a bit. And then I watched this one too, that I really like, this image. So he's playing again with the contrast. So we have the brightness on the back, and he's on the shadows. So I like how you can see the silhouette on him. I like the reflection here. I like the colors, how the pink lights are around him, and how with the bright and the contrast in the walls, the focus is going directly to him. And I really like how this image is working. I like even the little fill light that he has coming for the outside, because we can see all the details from him. And yeah, this one it has a good composition. Maybe I won't cut the hands. I will always cut like maybe from here, not only here. Just give him a bit more space. So maybe I will cut from here. But yeah, I really like this one too, and I like the little particles that we have here on the left, on the right. Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, I guess I'll give it a shot as well. It's a very traditional piece people like. So let's see. So for me, I've lit this environment probably 6 times or whatever. I have 6 different videos, and I also happen to have the similar concept of having one side have one color and another side have another color, which personally I removed because I didn't think I did a good job on it, and it's actually pretty hard to make it look good with that kind of color palette. So for me, I think because I know it's a cinematic, one of the first things that I am paying attention to is, from the point of cinematic now, not game, is the fact that the shots of the characters are not getting the attention they need, because that's the focal point, is the characters. So they are like a lot in the dark, and most of my attention is going to this one, which isn't necessarily the brightest, but it's because it's closest to me, so I'm noticing it a lot. But obviously this for me is probably, I would suspect, is the brightest. So the eyes are going everywhere but the characters. So certain things I would maybe consider doing is making sure you use the environment light and place them in a such a way per shot. We're talking about shot by shot lighting now. So I don't know if you did that or if you just put the light and then just played record and that's what you did. It looks like it without having watched the video. So certain things I would probably work more on is figuring out how to highlight and kind of make the character stand out. So in these cases, I would probably, just it's just certain things to make the characters pop. Now it should be a color, but I'm not really good at Photoshop either. So I'm just using what I have in my tool set to explain the principles. But generally, the idea is to make it pop out more, right? So to get it out from the shadow. Or I guess in theory, if my art director was here, he would probably just do something fancy. Like, I don't know, he would just get the characters and then, I don't know, he would just explain it, the silhouette, and then he would make it pop out somehow. I don't know how he would do that, but I guess in my case I will exaggerate and just do this. And I can, that was the wrong layer, but make it pop a bit. So another thing I can notice with this silhouette is also is the shape is getting lost, because when they are holding when I'm doing this, you also want to make sure that the green you have is kind of popping, so you can see the shape stronger and the foot stronger. And the same goes for the principle for the person at the back. It's kind of just use the lights, because this is more creative. This is shot by shot lighting, which has a completely different mindset when I do that compared to, say, game lighting. So here I would definitely just go like add the colors, the purple color, and kind of make sure that it's properly proper rimmed if that's needed, and kind of just make sure it's getting the color on it. And then I would probably I will maybe consider darkening it a bit, because you will get a bit of again focal point. Because the other reason I'm looking everywhere is just that generally that if everything is evenly lit, that means I'm going to look everywhere. So contrast is also very key in these kind of things. Is if there's a fight scene, they're going to fight, so you can use more black hair, you can darken it more to kind of focus a bit. And that's also why when you put more light on the characters, they'll start popping out more when you understand the key values or key ratio, which you can learn from photography on how much they use on the different light, which is some of the first thing I used to do when I started learning lighting is just copy the key ratios from photographers. And I just, if it says 4 out of 1 or 2 out of 1, I would just go like 100 lumens, 50 lumens, and 10 lumens, or candela, whatever. And that would help me a lot to understand the value between the light. I might also maybe play with the color. I'm not feeling the choice of colors, so maybe play with it a bit and kind of balancing it out a bit if you insist on using a displacement of color. It's kind of the same thing here. It's the same thing as Maria Ansorov says. I would, if I remember, is the intensity and the values are very strong in areas that aren't necessarily the key areas. So the characters are coming out there. So I would purposely dim a little bit some of the other areas, so this would be the brightest. So essentially what I would try and do, again, we're talking shot by shot lighting, is different than the other feedback I give. It's about making this the brightest spot for me, and making this and this less darker, so to speak, and this less darker. So the idea is to really get me to look where the character is coming from, because he's coming from there. And it's the same here. The issue with having two color, for me, again, I'm talking from my point of view, if I were to art direct it, is becomes flat a bit more because it's exactly the same color. So I would make this slightly different. So we'll make one a bit lighter, and one a bit darker, basically. So there's a certain depth difference, and that would also be the key here. Again, it's the same feedback. I think the characters didn't get the attention they need for this kind of type of lighting, and the fact that it's a cinematic fight scene. I think you could have more a purple rim light on the hand, or even on the shoulders, even on the top. So I think there's a lot more to work on here. A good fun thing I sometimes do, which doesn't really do anything other than help me have fun and kind of see things differently, is I will sometimes use a gradient tool, and I will make sure it's not the completely dark one, and I will just place over the light like this, and kind of pay attention to how it works. Or I would use overlay if I want to exaggerate, and I would just see what happens with the light, where it's getting darker, where it's getting brighter, and kind of go. And here I might go here and say, that's interesting, having that kind of difference. And that's where I might go on one of the shots. I know the characters are running towards each other. We didn't get a screenshot of that. So there I might have the bright spot in the stairs and a bit fog, and then kind of have that bleed into the scene. And this kind of helps me get an idea of how to look at the lighting as well. So it's just a trick that it's just a creative trick to kind of get a quick idea of how things work, and if it works or not. If you really want to exaggerate, you can go more black. So, but you do need to understand the ratio between key lights. So for me, everything is too evenly bright. So I would definitely take it shot by shot. So yeah, that's some of my pointers for this one.
Yeah, I actually wanted to add a few more things to what you just said. Amit, do you mind if I share my screen again?
Yeah, go on. Now, the worst part of doing this is we don't actually know if we completely agree or disagree yet.
So the other aspects I sort of like notice now is just like your shadow casting might be a little weird and what's going on here, or it might just be like we have placed your light. It's all like really unflattering, weird like light leaking going around, and it'll also like drop having this drop shadows. It's the lighting you get when you have like a light above a subject and you have really unflattering harsh shadows beneath the face. Sometimes it's like it's used for spooky, effects. That also pulls my eyes towards that just because it has like really strong shadows. The other thing I wanted to point out, I think this is what Amit was talking about. It's called split lighting. So, and I believe so. For example, with this one, since you have comparatively a darker side here, you would have like a brighter light on that side. And since this is a comparatively a brighter side, you would have like a darker side on this side. But like, but right now, since you have like a bright light, bright rim light, and a bright background, you're not recreating that contrast, and the silhouette doesn't stand out as much, other than the fact that it's also at the same light. But if you look at something like this, having a bright background here and then like a dark foreground and the other way around, it definitely helps. So this is see if I have a, yeah, this is a better example, I guess. Nope, not this one. But yeah, you can try like having like that sort of like effect going on too for this one. Just wanted to add that. I believe that's what Amit was trying to mention.
Yeah, I mean, it is. I mean, there's a lot to pick on that. For me, there's a lot that can be done for this piece to work on. But that's also because I've lit it so many times myself and had mentors look at it and go, no, 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 no. And but at the same time, for both pieces, I can point out that you both want to work on your shadow bias a bit, because I see some of the shadows weren't connecting in every piece. So it's definitely something you want to slide up and down to make sure that the shadow actually starts from the point of contact. and that is the shadow bias setting in Unreal Engine at least to do that. So I think we can just stop here. I mean, there's a few minutes left, but I think we covered at least two persons and two pieces, so I think that's good. And we want to thank everyone for watching, because we have had people watch all the time. So thank you for watching. Leave your like and subscribe, and join our Discord channel and post your piece if you haven't already, and we'll make time and we'll review that as well for the future. So thanks for watching, and have a good night or good morning, I guess.
Thank you very much.
Goodbye, everyone.
See you.